So you still believe in satellites, do you?
Could Russia be planning an attack on undersea cables that connect global internet?
Russian ships and submarines lurking near undersea cables that carry almost all of the world's internet.
The Cold War was a classic Hegelian dialectic.
Google and Facebook join forces on undersea data cable. The network of deep-sea Pacific Rim cables that help connect the web and keep it global is about to get bigger, with a little help from Google and Facebook. The deep-sea Pacific Light Cable Network will stretch across the Pacific Ocean between Hong Kong and Los Angeles. The cable will use new fiber optics to transmit large quantities of data, forming the first direct deep-sea cable network between the two cities. Normal fibers transmit data on the C-band. The new fibers will send data in both the C and L bands, which developer TE Subcom says effectively doubles the bandwidth available. The cable will be able to handle up to 120 terabits per second. Google says that's enough bandwidth for 18 million concurrent video conferences between Hong Kong and Los Angeles. When it's completed in 2018, the cable network will span some 12,800 kilometers between the cities.
I never saw a person going, look at what my phone can do. Nobody does that. They all go, this fucking thing sucks. Can't get it. Give it a second, would you? Could you give it a second? It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space? Is the speed of light too slow for you, you non-contributing product sponge cunt? Can you just wait? Can you just take a little breath? Just wait for that picture of Axl Rose to get on your phone. Like it even fucking mattered what you were doing. Like it was even important.
Along communication cables on the ocean floor. Wiretapping or cutting the cables altogether could have far-reaching and disastrous consequences. So we wanted to know just how much damage could Russia do by cutting undersea cables. First off, chances are high you're watching this video thanks to undersea cables, especially if you live outside of the United States. Undersea cables deliver up to 99% of international communications. The other 1% is served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. Served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. The other 1% is served by satellites, but they are considerably slower. Reportedly 278 cables in service, connecting every continent on Earth besides Antarctica. Today, these cables transmit phone calls, internet data, and other forms of digital traffic at a rate of up to 80 terabytes per second.
It's going to space. Can you give it a second to get back from space?
The longest cable connects Western Europe to Australia and East Asia and is nearly 25,000 miles long, but they've always been the fiber optic powerhouse they are today. The first submarine cables were laid in the 1850s and used to transmit telegrams. Over the past century and a half, those lines have been repeatedly upgraded and repaired to connect the world and provide the base for a more global community. The problem is that because these cables are thousands of miles and run across the ocean floor, it's almost impossible to keep an eye on them, which is why the U.S. is so concerned about Russia's activities. Of course, cutting an important cable would be difficult to deal with, but not unsolvable. Cables are regularly damaged accidentally by passing ships, broken by earthquakes, and even torn open by sharks. In 2007, more than 50 repairs were made in the Atlantic Ocean alone. Still, during the Cold War, Russia was repeatedly accused of intentionally breaking communications cables. This would have been in violation of the Convention for Protection of Submarine Telegraph Cables. This 1884 treaty made it illegal to damage undersea cables and even provided a way for ships which inadvertently snagged a cable to seek compensation for a lost anchor or fishing net. But what the U.S. may fear more than Russia cutting a cable is Russia wiretapping it. This fear is so great because the U.S. already did exactly that to Russia in the early 1970s. The project, codenamed Operation Ivy Bells, saw the National Security Agency successfully place a listening device on a Russian undersea cable. It stayed in place for nearly a decade, monitoring sensitive communication. Undersea cables are integral to modern-day communications. In 2008, damaged cables cut off internet access for 75 million people in the Middle East.
Last time I checked, I'm not supposed to get my computer wet. Second, if you asked me how the internet travels from continent to continent, I would have said satellites or lasers. Or honestly, I probably would have just said the internet.
And what happened to the